Remember, if I have two things multiplied together that equals 0, one of those things has to be 0. So that means that either x minus 6 has to equal 0 or x plus 3 has to equal 0. And now I just solve for x by adding 6 and subtracting 3. That means x equals 6 or negative 3. Okay. Same thing on the next one. Actually, all three problems are all the same. All four problems are all the same. So I've got x plus 4 equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0. So I subtract 4, subtract 4. Oh, it looks like I'm going to get the same answer. So x equals negative 4, which is all cool and dandy. And then we've got two things equaling 0, so one of them has to be 0. So x plus 5 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. So I solve for x by subtracting 5 on this equation and adding 2 to both sides of the equal sign on that equation. So I get x equals negative 5 and positive 2. Awesome. Okay, and on the last one, again, same thing. I am... have two things equaling 0, so I'm going to set them both equal to 0. So one of them has to be equal to 0. So 2x plus 1 equals 0, or x minus 1 equals 0. So solve for 0. I'm going to subtract 1 and add 1. Whew. So I get 2x equals negative 1 and x equals 1. So I still have to solve this one. So x is going to equal negative 1/2 or positive 1. Okay, is there any questions on that? On how that's done? Okay, notice I didn't put anything inside parentheses because parentheses means an x and a y point, and these are both x points. So make sure you're not putting your answers inside of parentheses, okay? So here we go. We're going to move on. But what we're doing today involves what we just did in the warm-up. So we're going to practice that again today. That's why we haven't done a checkpoint on this yet, because we're still practicing solving this. And we practice that, and we're going to be solving factored forms of equations to help us graph them. And that leads us to the factored form for a quadratic. And what it says f of x equals a times x minus p times x minus q, which is what we've been doing, right? That's factored form. If you look up of x plus 5 times x plus 2, it's just missing the f of x. That's okay. In the case up here, f of x just equals 0, so we just kind of replace the f of x with 0. So to further our definition, it says the points x equals p and x equals q are the x-intercepts. So that means if I'm looking back up at my example, number 3 is my example, my x-intercepts would be negative 5 and 2. So if I was to graph that, on my graph, I'd go to negative 5, and I'd put a point on my x, it's their x, the x-intercepts. So on the x-axis, I would put a point at negative 5 and one at 2, and then I'd have 2 points on my parabola already. So this gives me my x-intercepts, hence the name. Another one of the names is called intercept form. So it's called factored or intercept form. You'll hear both names to it. And of course, A still tells me whether it opens up or down. So if A is positive, it opens up. And if A is negative, it opens down. Okay? Just like in the vertex form, that part doesn't change. A always tells me the same thing, whether it opens up or down. Okay? So we're going to look at this, this example I have here and kind of break it down a little bit. Okay? So first of all, I have a negative in front. That means it's going to open down. As you can tell, my parabola is opening down. And then if I say f of x equals 0, I can rewrite this as 0 equals minus x minus 2 times x minus 6. Okay, and then I'm just going to solve those. Okay, just like I did on my warm-up, I'm going to solve those. This negative out here, I can get rid of that by just dividing by a -1, and 0 divided by -1 is just 0. Remember, a negative on the outside of a parenthesis is just a -1, and that's just a constant, and I can get rid of the constants by dividing by those, because the opposite of times is divide, so I can get rid of that. So now it looks just like what I did for my warm-up, right? So I have two things multiplied together that equals 1. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. That equals 0. So now I can set both. So that means that one of those things has to equal 0. So I have x minus 2 equaling 0 and x minus 6 equaling 0. So if I add 2 to both spots and add 6 to both sides of the equal sign, I've got x equals 2 and x equals 6. And then if you look at the graph, look right here. I have an x-intercept at 2, and then I have 1 at 6. So a lot of the times, if I'm just looking to match my, graph, I can actually find my x-intercepts and look for them on my graph here and here, and if they match, then it's usually the right answer. And then of course I want to make sure it opens in the correct direction, right? So this means it opens down. All right, and that's what we're going to practice doing today. So we're going to practice solving the equations for 0 when f of x equals 0, and then we're going to take them and we're going to match them to some graphs. So we have 12 equations, and I'm going to flip to the next page. So how to have this work, you guys, online and not have it be in Canva. It was just kind of hard. I'm just going to say this. So I wanted it to be in the notes, and I wanted it to kind of be homework. So it's kind of both. It's homework and notes. So as you're doing your solving here for all of these 1 through, I think there's 12. Oh, sorry. I should have chose there we go. There's 12 equations, and I'll do like 1 or 2 with you, and then I'll pick a couple different ones because some of them have some that we haven't really done yet, and then we'll talk about it. But what I'm going to have you do is solve them first, but write them down on a piece of paper. So like number 1 is this so write them down neatly so you can find the answers. And then we're going to go to the first and just kind of solve some of these problems. Okay? So let's look at number 1 first. We're going to do 1, 2, and 6 together, I think. Yeah, that looks good. So number 1, the difference between number 1 and what we've been doing is number 1 has a number in front of it. Is that okay? Yeah, it is. And remember, we're going to say f of x equals 0 for all these problems. So I'm just going to put a big 0 over the f of x. So how do I get rid of the 3? Well, that's 3 times x minus 4 and x minus 6, right? So how do I undo times? Anybody know how to undo times? Anybody at all know how to undo times? Ketlin said divide. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. My volume must be down really low. Let me turn it back up. Now say something, Ketlin. Can I hear you now?
Divide?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry, my volume was down on like 2, so I couldn't hear you. So I'm going to divide, right? So if I divide this side by 3, and I divide this side by 3, 0 divided by 3 is 0. So I've got 0 equals, and then these 3's make a 1. So I've just got x minus 4 times x minus 6. Awesome. So just like what we did before, right, on our warm-up and on the sample problem, I have two things that multiply to be 0, so I set them both equal to 0. So x minus 4 equals 0, and x minus 6 equals 0. So then I can say that x equals positive 4, right, because I'm going to add 4 here. And then I'm going to add 6 here. Sorry, I'm running out of room to write. So x is going to equal 4 and 6. So there's my x-intercepts for there. So now if you wanted, so this is where it's going to be difficult because you guys don't have the notes printed out. So what you might need to do is have the notes pulled up on your computer in another screen. Or you might just want to wait and have this written down on a piece of paper. I'm not sure, whichever is going to work best for you guys. I would probably just do all of this first on a separate piece of paper, all the solving first, and then go to the page with the graphs on it. That's probably what I would do, because on your screen, you can make the graph pages bigger so you can see where the x-intercepts are. But that's me. Whichever one you feel more comfortable doing is what you should do, right? You know what you're capable of with your technology. So let's talk about number 2 now. So number 2, can someone tell me this, again, sorry, my brain's going too fast today. So again, I'm going to make f of x equal to 0. And I'm not rewriting it because I don't have very many lines to do it on. So I'm just going to kind of put the 0 where the f of x goes. This says right here that it's squared. Can someone tell me what it means to be squared?
Multiply it twice.
When you say multiply it twice, do you mean multiply by 2? Or multiply it by itself?
I think it's multiplied by itself.
Good, yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify what that twice meant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is multiply by itself 2 times, right? So 0 equals x plus 2 times x plus 2. And that's what an exponent means. It means multiply it by itself, how many ever exponents you have. So, so now I have 2 things multiplied together that equals 0. So that means one of those things has to equal 0. So x plus 2 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0. So I'm going to subtract 2 and subtract 2, and x is going to equal negative 2. Because it's the same answer, so I don't have to write it twice. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. Monica has left. Okay, so now let's go to, you guys are going to do 3, 4, but let's go and look at 6 really quick. So what's different about number 6 than the other problems?
There is no squared. I mean,
So if you take a look at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, right? They're all showing up on your board or your computer. What's the difference between 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Well, 6 has, in the middle, it has equals 2x, and all the others just have, or it's equal to something, or it's equal to 3, or negative, and I don't know.
So how about all the others have 2 sets of parentheses, right? Yeah. So, but I'm still doing the same thing. Does 2x right next to the parenthesis, what does that mean mathematically? Does it mean add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Which one does it mean? Multiply. So it still means multiply. So the 2 parentheses meet right next to each other, right, means multiply. The 2x right next to the parenthesis still means multiply. So I'm still multiplying 2 things together, right? So I'm still multiplying 2 things together. And guess what? We're still making them equal to 0. So I'm going to rewrite this as 0 equals 2x times x minus 4. And because I still have it as equaling 0, and it's still 2 things multiplied together that equals 0, that means one of those things has to be 0, right? So either 2x has to equal 0 or x minus 4 has to equal 0. Just because the 2x is in parentheses, I'm not adding anything to the 2x, doesn't mean that I'm still not multiplying that 2x times what's in the next parenthesis. So it still works out to be the same. Either 2x has to equal 0 or x minus 4 has to equal 0. I'm still solving for 0. I still need to solve for 0. I still need to get x by itself. So on the first one, I'm going to divide by 2. And the second one, I'm going to add 4. I almost subtracted 4. So that means x is going to equal, well, on this first one here, x equals 0, because 0 divided by 2 is just 0. And then here, of course, it is positive 4. Okay, so I'm going to give you like, let's do like 4 or 5 minutes to do 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. And then we'll go down and do the last 4 before we go to the graph page. Okay, does that sound okay? All right. Oh, I'm just tired and I don't know why. I honestly don't have any clue why I'm so tired. Like yesterday it hit me and then that was it. I was done. So 0 equals x plus 2 times x plus 8. So x plus 2. So hopefully you guys, I'm so excited. Oh, I don't know why I put that in parentheses. I'm so excited. I have to wait around the school tonight for CPR training. So I will be putting in your checkpoint for solving tonight. That should be available over the weekend for solving this. So just be on the lookout for that. So if you haven't been doing your checkpoints, oh, that just kind of reminds me, thank you. Thank you for myself, right? On your checkpoints lately, I don't know if you've noticed, there's a pull down menu for your answers. So if you do look at the answers that come up and there's only like 3 or 4 and you don't find your answer in those 3 or 4, if you scroll down, there's more answers. There's like 10 to 12 answers for each problem that you have to choose from. So I saw that some of you were not doing very well on the checkpoints, and then someone in my college prep math class told me that they didn't understand that there was the pull down menu scrolled to get more answers. So that might be why you were not finding the answer. If that was part of the issue, is that you were not being able to find the answer that you were looking for because you weren't scrolling down through the menu. Just kind of think about that. That pull down menu in your checkpoint will scroll through some answers. So it shows more than what's showing. You just have to scroll through it. Boy, that was a super long explanation. I am very sorry. But yeah, so don't forget that. So I've got x equals -2 and -8. And then here for number 4, if I go to 0, I've got 0 equals x plus 2 and x minus 5. So x plus 2 equals 0, or x minus 5 equals 0. So x is going to equal negative 2 and positive 5. Beautiful. And then here we go again. So 0 is going to equal 3 times x plus 2 times x plus 5. So I've got x plus 2 equals 0 and x plus 5 equals 0. So x is going to equal negative 2 and negative 5. Okay. And then number 7, I've got 0 equals x plus 1 times x minus 5. So x plus 1 equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. So x is going to equal negative 1 and positive 5. And then for number 8, we've got 0 equals 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 3, which gives me x plus 2 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. So x is going to equal negative 2 and negative 3. So we've got 4 more problems. So I'd like you guys to go ahead and... Okay, let's see if you guys got this. So this is going to be 0, right? So I've got 0 equals negative 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 1. So that means that x plus 1 can equal 0 or x minus 1 can equal 0. So x is going to equal negative 1 or positive 1. Zero here. So we've got 0 equals negative 2 times x minus 1 times x plus 3. So x minus 1 can equal 0 or x plus 3 can equal 0. So x is going to equal positive 1 or negative 3. Beautiful. Number 11. 0 is going to equal negative minus x minus 2 times x minus 6, parenthesis. So either x minus 2 has to equal 0 or x minus 6 has to equal 0. So x is going to equal 2 or 6. And then the last one is kind of like number 6, I think it was. So 0 equals x times x minus 6. So either x equals 0 or x minus 6 equals 0. Wow. So x is either going to equal 0 or positive 6. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you need to have all of these written down, all of your answers written down, because when we go to the next screen, we need to have all of our answers. I'm just going to take a picture because I don't know. I don't have them all written down. Snapshot. Okay. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the next page. Okay. And this is where your homework comes in. And I'm going to show you how to do one of these, and then you have to do the other 12. Other 12. If I do one, then you have to do the other 11, okay? Second page. And the second page, or the last page, has all the graphs on it. And then you're going to match the graphs to the equation. So say number 1 had an x-intercept at 1 x-intercept, because it looks like one. I'm going to zoom in here. Say it looks like it has 1 x-intercept at negative 2, right? This one only has 1 oh, I guess I should have my pen out. It only has 1 x-intercept at negative 2. So what I would do, I could do it 2 ways. I could take my first one and I could look through all the graphs and find a x-intercept that matches that one. Or I could say, oh, this one has 1 x-intercept at negative 2, and look through all my x-intercepts that I found and match A to whichever problem it goes with. So whichever way you want to do that, I'm not really going to say anything about. You can do it whichever way you want. But let's go back. So I've got 12 beautiful graphs here, okay? See all 12 of them? So I couldn't make them fit any nicer or neater or whatever. I did the best I could. And they're labeled A through L, okay? So there's a couple different ways I could do this. Like I said, I could start with A and find my x-intercepts on A, and then find which problem had an x-intercept of that. Or I could say, number one on my equations that we did, oops, yale. Number one on my equations that we did had x-intercepts of 4 and 6. Now I'm going to look at my graph, and it opened upwards. So I know since it opened upwards because it was a positive 3, that it's not B and it's not D and it's not E and it's not G, right? I can eliminate some because it opens upwards. So I can do that. And I know that it has an x-intercept of 4 and 6. So I can start looking at my x-intercepts here. So if I look at that, so I'm just going to kind of mark my x-intercepts. And let's just mark it in this color because it'll be bright. Here's an x-intercept. Here's an x-intercept. And I'm looking for ones at 4 and 6. So here's 0 and 4. And here's -1 and +1. And this one opens down, but I'm still going to mark it here. Here is -5 and -2. That one's definitely not it. This one opens down, so this is not it, but I'm still going to mark it. And I could write down where my x-intercepts are on here. Oh, this is -8 and -2. And maybe that would have been smart of me to write down where my x-intercepts are, but you're going to have to decide. Oh, this one, I didn't make a copy of the x-axis on this one. It looks like it's +3. So this one looks like it's 4 and 6. So it looks like this one, I would go with number 1. So number 1 and I go together. Okay? J, K, and I'm just going to go ahead and mark the last ones here. Okay? And then I would go to the next x-intercept, whatever my okay. I know I took a picture. Okay, maybe I didn't. Oh, I did. Okay. And then I go to my next one, which is -2. So I only have one x-intercept, and then I would match that up. So I'm just going to leave this here. If you want, you can, and then when you turn it in, if you're writing it on a piece of paper, you can take a picture and upload it. Or I also did make it so you could type it into a document, a text document. So you could type it in. You can say 1 is I, and 2 is whatever letter 2 is, and 3 is whatever letter 3 is. And just turn them in that way and then push submit in Canvas, whichever way you want to do it. But make sure that you get them right, please. And if you have any questions, please ask questions. Is there any questions on how I found the graph that matched? Because I'm letting you guys go on this. So if you weren't paying attention and you don't have any idea how I did this, please make sure. Okay, it's due at the end of class. You have 30-ish minutes to do it in. And do not leave until you submit it, and or else I'm marking you partially gone for the day. I can leave the graphs up here for you. I might be able to make it a little bigger. There we go. But you can pull up the notes in Canvas and pull into those